In this Remnant 2 video, we'll be showcasing all of the starting classes, plus a couple extra, so you'll have an idea of what archetype best suits your playstyle when playing Remnant. There are a handful of archetypes to choose from, and it can be overwhelming, especially for new players who have not played the previous title. Additionally, playing in multiplayer is a major factor when choosing your class, since it each has a distinct role in the field. Thus, understanding the pros and cons of the basic kit of each archetype is a must, especially since players can now multiclass or equip 2 archetypes, adding considerable depth to gameplay. Hopefully this video will point you in the right direction when planning out your future builds. Gunfire Games has made Remnant 2 larger in almost every aspect, and one major way that they're doing this is by introducing more diverse and interesting classes to the game. Each class is now more intricate and detailed than those from the previous title. They come with their unique mechanics, skills, advantages, and enhancements that you can mix and match as you advance through the game. Once you've made enough progress in the campaign, you'll be able to use a secondary archetype, which lets you use abilities from 2 different classes at the same time. These secondary classes have access to all the same features as the main class, like choosing 1 skill from the 3 options and taking advantage of the archetype trait. The only difference is that you can't use its prime perk. It's worth noting that the main archetype slot will determine which prime perk will be active, so make sure to read what these are and slot them in the correct places. Just keep in mind that your second archetype will have its own progression and will need to be leveled up as well to gain full benefit from the other perks. While unlocking your second archetype slot can be done after progressing in the game, players can unlock more archetypes by crafting special items called Archetypes engrams. These items will need to be used in crafting in conjunction with other base materials which are scattered throughout the game world. Most of the base materials for the starting classes can be unlocked in Word 13, which is your main hub of the game. There will be no need to create a new character since all of these archetypes can be changed on the fly, which is a major plus point. We've covered this in our 12 things you must know about Remnant 2 video, along with other essential tips, and you can visit the official Remnant 2 wiki for more helpful tips, such as item locations. In Remnant 2, perks are special passive abilities that enhance your build. There are 5 types of perks, and each class has 1 perk of each type. You can unlock these by leveling up your archetype, and as you make your way towards level 10, each perk gets stronger. Perks always unlock in the same order for every class in the game. This order is Prime Perk, Damage Perk, Team Perk, Utility Perk, and Relic Perk. When you reach levels 6 to 10, the same cycle happens again, but this time these same perks get upgraded to their final and more powerful versions. In Remnant 2, there are 2 types of traits, Archetype traits and Core traits. Core traits are the same for all classes and provide general bonuses. These bonuses include increased damage reduction, max health, max stamina, or improving mod power generation, to name a few. These traits can be leveled up by assigning trait points that you get when exploring the world or from beating bosses, while archetype traits are unique traits tied to archetypes. When you play a particular class, archetype traits automatically level up as your archetype levels up, with the maximum level being 10, meaning you don't need to spend trait points on archetype traits. Note that when you reach level 10 with an archetype, its trait will become available for other classes to use. There are 11 archetypes playable in the game, but for now we will focus on starting classes that you can select when starting your first playthrough. And by now you're aware that a second archetype can be taken advantage of, so you have at least a little bit of leeway when picking your first class depending on the modes that you will play, particularly if you're playing multiplayer. The 5 starting archetypes in Remnant 2 are the Gunslinger if you pre-ordered the game, Challenger, Handler, Medic, and Hunter. Each offers an in-depth selection of abilities, skills, and support abilities to help boost your team and help them survive or even when playing solo. As a reminder, we'll be focusing on how each starting class works, thus we will not delve that much in terms of the second archetype, and that will be covered in our build videos, so stay tuned for those. The Handler class comes with a companion which can help support you and your team. It's a jack-of-all-trades support class able to do several things, including damage, support your team, and distract enemies. This is all done through commands with your companion. Let's dive into these passives and active skills. All of the archetype normal perks in general are self-explanatory, hence we decided to focus on each archetype's prime perks and active skills, and these 2 define the gameplay of each archetype. The Handler's prime perk, Bonded, focuses mainly on supporting the handler and their allies. If the handler gets knocked down, the companion will try to revive them with half of its maximum health. The ability can also be used to revive other allies if you command the companion to do so. However, the ally who needs reviving must have a dragon heart available for this to work. The Guard Dog active skill makes it so that your companion loves to protect you and your allies. As you move around, your companion will stay close to you and attract more attention from enemies, making them more appealing target. Additionally, your companion will take less damage from those enemies. This skill works well when dividing enemy attention or dividing the horde into groups so that the party can clear waves with ease. If you hold the command, your companion will emit a howl that reduces damage for all your allies within a certain range. This howl also gives your companion even more attention from enemies, making them an even bigger distraction that lasts for a short period of time, which can allow enemies to focus solely on them. The Support Dog active skill makes it so that as you journey, your loyal companion will stick with you and provide ongoing healing to allies within a short range, providing healing over time. When you press and hold the button, your companion will unleash a powerful ability. This ability bestows a significant healing effect on all allies within range and adds healing over time. Moreover, they will gain a substantial increase in movement speed, allowing them to move quickly and skillfully as needed. The Attack Dog active skill is an offensive stance for the companion where he accompanies you while gaining a damage boost. Dividing the enemy's attention is one of the key skills of your companion, but the Attack Dog skill may also provide an offensive buff to the party. You can expect hard hits with them mostly when using this skill. If you hold the button, a powerful effect occurs. All allies within a certain range receive a damage buff increase, empowering them to deal more damage during critical moments or damage window times. The pros of the handler is that it's a versatile job and one that can focus its efforts by concentrating on its full support abilities and aid the team with healing and powerful buffs that can be a game changer. If you don't plan to run at least one medic in the party, I see the handler as the perfect job that adds further sustainability and other positive buffs. While in single-player mode, your DPS will not be as high compared to the DPS archetypes. However, having a companion provides value. Not only is it fun to have your trusty partner at your side, but the ability of the companion to aggro enemies and deal additional damage is invaluable. Enemies will be forced to target your companion if you use the right skill, leading to safe play. When it comes to cons of the handler, one I can think of is overall DPS, but it will solely depend on your playstyle or preference. The handler concentrates on supportive types of passives and skills, so temper your expectations in terms of damage numbers if you're playing this class. It is a support archetype anyway. Another con is that your companion is a melee attacker, which means that it cannot hit floating or flying targets. Most of the bosses in Remnant II are mid-air, so keep that in mind. However, you can make it your secondary archetype getting around this issue. Pair it with a DPS class, and you'll have a significant bump in DPS, and this will not be as much of an issue. The medic class is what you want to choose if you're a team player focused on working with your allies. They heal much faster and more efficiently than any other class, and can keep their teammates alive in a fight. This archetype also provides shields to save the party in dire situations. The prime perk for this class is the Regenerator. This makes it so that once you've healed allies for a certain amount, you will automatically regain a spent relic charge. This is a powerful perk that can keep the party alive in a restorative loop. Their first active skill is Wellspring. This makes it so that the medic uses healing energy to empower their fist, and when they punch the ground, a healing AoE spring is created. This healing spring restores health over time and significantly accelerates the blight decay rate. The AoE springs last for a decent duration that can provide continuous heals to the party, thus allowing them to tank damage during its duration. The Heat Shield active skill makes it so the medic can shield their allies as well. In a swift motion, the user releases a burst of healing energy, enveloping all allies within a certain range, with a protective shield equal to their maximum health. The shielding effect lasts 10 seconds. While shielded, allies experience the benefit of regeneration, restoring a chunk of their health over time. And the Redemption active skill makes it so when activated, it releases a powerful shockwave that covers a certain distance. This shockwave serves two purposes. It revives downed allies, bringing them back to life, and it heals them by restoring a significant amount of their maximum health over a period. Moreover, if you hold the skill button longer, the healing effect becomes even more potent. Each additional second of holding the button adds further healing potency. The pros of this class are that its burst heals are unparalleled, along with its healing-wide relic restorative powers that keep the party healthy or in good shape. It is a must-have archetype when playing in multiplayer, especially when tackling advanced dungeons or playing on higher difficulties, especially if you don't have a handler archetype or another support archetype in your group. While in single-player mode, beginners will find this archetype a good starting class, especially when trying to adapt to the game's difficulty. The extra healing on top of your relics will give players ample wiggle room for mistakes. Once you progress through the game, you will unlock the second archetype anyway if you want to ramp up your DPS with another class. The cons of this class are that finding the medic's usefulness will vary depending on the player's skill. Experienced players will find the medic underwhelming in most cases, since as a DPS-oriented player, the additional skill slot needs to be in at least something that can be used to increase your build damage. As your skill increases in Remnant, medics fall off in favor of more potent archetypes. Hunters excel in long-range, precise gunplay. They are skilled at identifying targets and eliminating them with precision, utilizing various perks that aid in picking off their foes. Additionally, they are valuable team players, providing support to their allies, and are particularly effective at dealing significant damage to an opponent's weak spot, likely the strongest single-hit shots in the game if built properly. Their prime perk, Dead to Rights, makes it so whenever hunters deal ranged weak spot damage, the duration of their active hunter skills increases. This extension can go beyond the initial duration of the skill, allowing you to enjoy longer lasting effects as you continue to hit weak spots with your ranged attacks. The Hunter's Mark active skill enhances the hunter's awareness by creating an aura that automatically applies the mark to all enemies within a considerable range. Once marked, these enemies become visible even through walls, providing a significant advantage in tracking their movements. Moreover, the mark increases the critical chance of the entire party, making it easier for everyone to land critical hits on marked foes. The Hunter's Focus active skill heightens the hunter's senses, which causes aiming at an enemy to apply mark. Continuously aiming down sights uninterrupted and without shooting causes the hunter to enter a focused state. When focused, weapon speed, recoil, and sway are reduced, and overall range damage and range critical chance is boosted. The Hunter's Shroud active skill makes it so when the hunter enters a shrouded state, their presence becomes less notable to enemies, making them harder to target while on the move. However, any attack, mod activation, or skill usage will instantly end the Shroud. Upon leaving the Shroud, the hunter applies the mark to all nearby enemies and gains the Ambush effect. Ambush significantly boosts the damage dealt by both ranged and melee attacks, but its effectiveness decreases gradually over time. Additionally, the hunter will automatically enter the shrouded state again after a brief period if they don't perform any offensive actions. The pros of this archetype are that snipers or long-range oriented players will love this class. Equipped with DPS-oriented perks and skills that heavily rely on the specific range define this class with clarity, making it relatively easy to build since you already have a direction to follow. Adept in long-range rifles that hit like a truck on a single shot, the hunter avoids enemy aggro most of the time due to its positioning, especially when playing multiplayer. Expect high DPS and satisfying kills if this class is handled correctly. The cons of this class are that the hunter has a high skill floor, and this can be a pro or con depending on your perspective. Precision and timing are the skills that one needs to master when playing this archetype, and since this class is heavily reliant on weak spot damage, and zoning in on your targets can be a challenging task, beginners may find this class more challenging to play than they realized. The Challenger archetype embodies the role of a powerful tank. Sporting thick armor and wielding formidable melee weapons, they excel at close to mid-range combat, specializing in demolishing enemies and enduring heavy assaults. Their unique abilities allow them to significantly reduce incoming damage and enhance various aspects of their capabilities. Their prime perk, Die Hard, makes it so that when a challenger is about to be defeated, they enter a brief invulnerable state, and during this time they regenerate their maximum health. However, this ability can only be triggered once every 10 minutes, so you cannot use it all that often, and hopefully you don't need to. Their War Stomp active skill is an offensive skill of challengers. This skill generates a powerful tremor that inflicts damage and causes additional stagger to enemies within a forward cone. When used at close range, it deals damage in all directions around the user, and is useful when clearing a group of enemies. The Juggernaut active skill, as the name implies, makes the challenger become the juggernaut of the battlefield. By activating this ability, the challenger becomes incredibly resilient, acquiring bulwark, enhanced movement, faster melee speed, and a boost in melee damage. Furthermore, the amount of stagger damage you receive is significantly reduced during this state, making you nearly unstoppable in combat. The Rampage active skill is a well-rounded skill that empowers the challenger to great heights. When activated, the challenger enters an intense state of battle, granting increased fire rate, quicker reload speed, and enhanced movement speed for a limited time. Moreover, dealing significant damage to enemies bestows a stack of rage, which in turn boosts ranged damage. As the number of rage stacks reaches a certain threshold, the challenger goes berserk, automatically reloading their current firearm and intensifying the effects of Rampage, doubling its impact on the battlefield. The pros of this class are that even though the challenger performs in mid-range combat where enemies can be overwhelming at times, its repertoire of skills and passives makes it formidable not just in damage but also when it comes to reducing incoming damage, making it the sturdiest archetype. Beginner players will enjoy this class as it makes the difficulty of Remnant II a bit more forgiving. Its unique passives that empower melee playstyles are enticing as well, giving players more diversity when it comes to Remnant's overall gameplay. The cons of this class are that as the challenger excels in mid-range combat, players will find less damage compared to other classes, especially when using a shotgun-type weapon when dealing with flying enemies or bosses. This can be alleviated by using a different type of loadout, but it will defeat the challenger's design. Although I'd love to have a second life due to its prime perk, I find it less useful at endgame since you should not be planning on failure. However, this issue can be rectified by setting Challenger as your secondary archetype and using the prime perk of another class. Next is the Gunslinger, a master of firearms that possesses several perks that enhance their efficiency with the weapons in their arsenal. They excel at dealing massive damage, making the most of their ammunition and firing bullets at a rapid rate. Their prime perk, Loaded, is designed to make the Gunslinger execute fluid gameplay in dealing damage. Upon activating any Gunslinger skill, both weapons undergo an instant reload, and all weapons gain infinite reserve ammunition for a brief duration. Their first active skill is Quick Draw, which makes it so that they unleash a barrage of 6 shots from the hip, each dealing significant damage per shot. By pressing the button, you can immediately fire at all enemies within a certain range, and upon releasing the button, the shots will be evenly distributed among all targets. Holding down the skill will allow players to manually direct the shots to targets that deal greater damage. The Sidewinder skill makes it so that the Gunslinger experiences a surge in movement speed and a considerable boost in weapon draw and swap speed. When switching between weapons, the firearm will automatically be reloaded within a brief period, ensuring the Gunslinger stays ready for action. The Bulletstorm active skill makes the Gunslinger reach the peak of their power and speed. Conventional firearms transform into fully automatic weapons, while bows and crossbows gain enhanced projectile speed and critical chance. Additionally, the Gunslinger experiences a substantial increase in fire rate and reload speed for a certain duration, maximizing their combat efficiency. The pros of this class are that in terms of range damage, Gunslinger can provide an unparalleled experience. Especially if you love to play with weapons that have high fire rates, the Gunslinger can play a pivotal role in enhancing these types of builds. Relatively easy to build as well, and most of its foundation can be accessed at the start of the game. I can't stress enough how important the reload speed and ammo capacity are in this game, and the Gunslinger can manage these two avenues well and concentrates on damage alone. DPS-oriented players will love this class, and it can work with a vast array of weaponry. The cons of this class are that all of the other archetypes have damage mitigating perks or skills that may aid beginner players in the early goings of the game, but the Gunslinger does not. Since the Gunslinger is a pure DPS archetype, it requires a little bit of advanced play at the start. You may find this job squishy at first, however, your skills will improve over time to offset this con. The Explorer is a specialist with exceptional skills in discovering valuable items and offering vital support to the team. Their expertise enables them to generate extra items and rare drops when defeating powerful enemies. Using a range of abilities, the Explorer can improve their ability to find loot, increase the team's damage, reveal hidden treasures, and boost the movement speed of allies. This archetype is acquired from completing the game. Its prime perk, Lucky, increases the chances of the party getting rare loot when defeating enemies. Helpful when running dungeons when gathering in-game currencies or crafting materials. The Planeswalker active skill increases the party's overall movement speed while reducing their stamina consumption, useful when exploring extensive areas like dungeons. This skill contributes greatly in combat, as players often use most, if not all, of their stamina while avoiding enemies. The more stamina they have, the more rolls the party can do. The Gold Digger active skill makes the Explorer dig into the ground and spring a fountain that provides various buffs. There's a little bit of RNG in here, however, the general buffs that a player can get range from added damage dealt to damage reduction or healing over time. The Fortune Hunter active skill makes the Explorer scan the map into certain range, revealing items that the party can loot. This is very useful when hunting for specific items or when exploring dungeons. The pros of this archetype are that the Explorer is a unique archetype that focuses on items and material hunting. The ability to scan the area for possible items is a huge time saver. This archetype is loaded with passives that increase material drop rates or affect the quality of items you get in chests. The Explorer may lessen the burden of exploration by buffing the party with a movement speed increase to cover as much ground as possible in a short period. Beginners will find this archetype useful, especially when optimizing their first builds. Players can commit to a pure support type of build with the Explorer when playing in multiplayer, since you can rely on your teammates to deal damage while you focus on supporting your allies. With a secondary support type archetype, like a medic for example, Explorer can be a vital part of a build. Whether hunting new items in multiplayer or solo play, one can appreciate the Explorer's value. The cons of this class are that the Explorer heavily relies on a second class, preferably a DPS archetype, due to it not having any offensive skills when playing solo. The main issue with this class in solo play is its longevity. Once you get your desired gear or materials, it's likely that you will not use this job again unless its passes are needed in builds that rely on movement speed. The Alchemist is a character who focuses on supporting the party by applying helpful buffs. Its unique abilities enhance item effectiveness, increasing their overall effects and longevity. Equipped with supportive skills that can increase fire rate, damage reduction, and even revives, this class can be obtained by defeating Manticora in the Manticora from the Drain event in Lossum. Its prime perk, Spirited, makes it so that they can have 3 concoction buffs simultaneously. Concoctions are useful items that add various helpful buffs, and most of these buffs are powerful in general, such as further increased rate of fire or mod power generation. The Stone Mist active skill makes the user a moving tank. Adding further damage reduction and status ailment resistance, this skill works wonders with a tank build, like with a Challenger for instance. Note that all of the vials can be thrown to specific locations so the party can access the AoE pool and have the buffs. The Frenzy Dust vial applies positive buffs that increase the target's fire rate, movement, reload, and melee speed, an overall boost for the party to enjoy and useful in bursting down targets. The Vial Elixir of Life's active skill applies continuous healing to the party and regenerates health over time and protects the team from fatal damage, but is even more powerful as this skill can revive allies as well. The pros of this class are that the Alchemist provides impressive buffs that may improve the overall party's performance. Another support archetype that plays with consumables and concoctions, improving overall efficacy of the team. Players who love to tinker with items will find this job enjoyable. Playing with different types of item effects may add another layer of complexity to builds. The Alchemist can also perform well in both single and multiplayer modes due to its versatile skills and passives. DPS-oriented archetypes may be paired well with the Alchemist, and an example would be a melee and damage reduction type Challenger build. Its tanking capabilities will be significantly improved when using the Alchemist damage reduction skills. Alchemist can contribute greatly when building a pure support-oriented archetype. Its ability to revive allies like the Medic does is a great addition to a support character's repertoire. Having 2 revive abilities may tremendously help in difficult fights when playing in multiplayer. The cons of this class are that, like other support classes, the Alchemist requires a DPS class to perform in solo play, and pure DPS types of players may find that other archetypes are more useful depending on their build. And playing with consumables may be fun when using concoctions, but this gameplay is niche in most cases. And lastly, we come to the Summoner archetype. The Summoner possesses exceptional skills in controlling and directing minions to carry out their commands. By provoking their minions, they can enhance their damage, attack speed, and movement, while sacrificing minions temporarily empowers the Summoner's own attacks. Minions that reach the end of their lifespan create healing auras, and utilizing relics enhances minion health and damaging capabilities. With a variety of minion types at their disposal, the Summoner wields a formidable range of abilities. To unlock this archetype, players first need to find the Fated Grimoire, which can be crafted at the Blood Moon altar using Blood Moon Essence. The Summoner's prime perk, Ruthless, makes it so the Summoner has the ability to enrage its minions. Being enraged grants significant buffs to minions, such as an increase in damage, attack, and movement speed. The Minion Hollow active skill makes it so that you summon up to 2 hollows that can quickly engage enemies at high speed. These can be sacrificed and explode to damage their surroundings, and these hollows can effectively engage ground targets, but they cannot engage airborne enemies. The Minion Flyer active skill makes it so that you summon flyers, which are interesting minions that stay in midair and shoot projectiles at their targets. One major plus of this minion is the ability to engage both ground and airborne targets with ease. When sacrificed, an explosion deals damage to surrounding targets and spawns homing projectiles that deal more damage. Second to the Reaver, I find the Flyer effective in various situations, making it a viable summon. And then we come to the Minion Reaver active skill. This is the hardest hitting minion of the Summoner. It's very effective against ground targets and also has the ability to hit airborne enemies. Its large health pool is perfect against incoming damage, but the main drawback of this minion is that you can only summon one at a time. The pros of this archetype are that the Summoner is an excellent choice for players who love variety, build complexity, and unique gameplay. This archetype can deploy summons that may aid the Traveler in the field, and each summons has its strengths and weaknesses and its own unique abilities with different types of mechanics and executions that players may find fun to play with. The Summoner's minions can effectively direct enemy attention to them, making the player safe from incoming attacks. Not only do the minions provide protection to the Traveler to some degree, but their overall damage can also wipe out enemy hordes effectively. A further addition to minions is the Handler's Companion. If used as a second archetype, the Companion may add a further boost of parameters to the Summoner's minions, making it a powerful build. The cons of the Summoner are that it can be complex at times, and beginners may find this archetype's gameplay advanced and overwhelming, especially when dealing with hordes of enemies. Players who prefer a straightforward gameplay or style may refrain from using this archetype. To maximize the value of this class, players need to constantly check their minions' health points. Once its HP is low, it's advisable to detonate it, providing additional DPS and a healing circle that players can take advantage of. So that wraps up our video on classes. I hope you guys found this useful in making a decision to what classes you want to play, giving you some ideas for multiclassing. There are other archetypes in the game that we did not list here for spoiler purposes, but just know that these are not all of them, and there are more for you to discover. So what did you think of our guide? What tips do you have for new players? Are you playing the game right now? Let us know in the comments below.